So this full moon in Taurus is going to affect each of the 12 zodiac signs in interesting ways. First of all, we have this. First, we'll start with Aries. Aries is experiencing a second house transit with the planet, with the new moon in Scorpio. So this is a second house contrasting point. So what this means is that Aries is working on this deep change and transformation and stabilizing the emotions and our emotional stresses in life. And within that, you need to inculcate more inner stability and emotional stability. Of course, Aries always concentrates the lessons very strongly, and so with Aries, it's a very strong 8th house and 2nd house quality as well, because Scorpio is the 8th sign, Taurus is the 2nd sign. So Aries, you have to realize that you can't look to these outer circumstances to balance your inner mind. And so falling back on your values, your value systems, those deep embedded structures in your life is the key for your success in getting a handle on your emotional insecurities and stresses. And so for Taurus, this is a first house thing. So you're dealing with relationships, 7th house cycle right now. And so you're feeling a lot of upheaval, perhaps, and confusion around your partners and things like that, and your partnership, and those agreements feel volatile. So what you need to be able to do is check in with your emotional state, check in with yourself, and make sure that you're not about to compromise too much in order to maintain connection. Taurus, you have a tendency to do that anyway. So this full moon in your first house is very much about you checking in with your own sort of no compromise zone emotionally. Your emotional needs are important and need to be part of any agreement. Otherwise, you're just going to be resentful, or you're just going to be clinging to some situation. You have to make sure to not be clinging to some situation out of fear, rather than willing to be dynamic in the midst of change, which is part of life. Gemini, this is a 6th and 12th house connection. So all those planets, you're experiencing 6th house stuff, which is about, putting forth effort and the willingness to, go through the unpleasant work, the unpleasant emotional work of getting down into a deeper state of stability. Gemini is a sign that wants to be playful and flexible and curious and likes things to be light and easy, but you have the same emotional fears and concerns as everyone, Gemini, and you need to be willing to work hard and embrace that unpleasantness. This is the 6th house cycle right now that you're in of Scorpio. This full moon in the 12th house is the balancing point, which says, okay, you've been dealing with enough of that emotional stress. You need to just let go and surrender to outcomes and be open to possibilities that don't have to do with you figuring it out and you trying to make something happen through your hard work and effort, which is 6th house. Gemini's been trying to work hard to do things. Now you need to work less and just see what's the result when you put no effort into things, and what's the universe bringing back to you. This is the balance between the 6th and 12th houses. Cancer, this is a 5th and 11th house cycle. So for Cancer, this could be a very creative time because you're having this eclipse cycle. The sun-moon cycle started in Scorpio, which is your 5th house of creativity, and also things that have to do with spiritual pursuits, spiritual goals, and guru and children and creativity and all of that stuff for you, Cancer. So what you're experiencing now is the 11th house by contrast, which has to do with larger themes, things that have less to do with your own personal creative joy and inspiration, and that have more to do with connecting those individual joys and creations with culture and society, which is the 11th house. That's a big lesson for you right now, Cancer. Universalizing your creative expressions toward things that are beneficial for others. In a sense of service, especially. And since the moon is your ruling planet, this eclipse and full moon in your 11th houses shows a great time for service and connection to larger themes. For Leo, this is a 4th and 10th house transit. So you're really experiencing a lot of 4th house cycle right now, which is about your own inner peace and stability, your own inner emotional strength. And the 10th house full moon shows where you need to be able to balance external responsibilities and pressures and worldly duties with inner responsibilities. And so this means that there's also outer responsibilities and outer results that come as a result, that come from your inner truth, which means your emotional state, 4th house, is what causes a lot of action. And you take action, 10th house, from a place of your emotional environment, 4th house. And so you have to be responsible, 10th house, for those activities as well. So this big contrast between your inner life, 4th house, and your outer and the outer actions you take and their impact is big for you right now, Leo. So you're aware of the impact of your actions, emotionally, psychologically aware of the impact of your actions that have come from your emotional state now, Leo. So this is a big one because, the 4-10 axis has a lot to do with our inner strength and our outer actions and responsibilities that come as a result. Virgo, this is a 3rd and 9th house transit. So for Virgo, this is a 3rd house cycle, which is about being more flexible, creative, communicative, trying new things, having the courage to try a new way. That's big for Virgo right now. The courage to explore new roads and new venues. And in contrast to that now, in contrast to that 3rd house lesson, is the 9th house lunar eclipse, which is the emotional, psychological awareness of great teachings and great gurus and the things that you have fallen back on before, your sense of philosophy and higher purpose that must inform all of your external strivings and all of those things, all of those new interests and new ways of looking at things must be filtered through your deeper philosophies, 9th house. So Virgo in a 3rd house cycle means that you're trying new things, trying new ways to figure out things and understand them. 9th house is those things that you can never really understand through your own limited intellect. So maintaining your connection to faith and deeper principles is the 9th house contrast for you, Virgo. And Libra, this is a 2nd and 8th house, opposite Aries. So you're dealing with 2nd house issues right now, Libra, which have to do with your own values, your own value system, which could include your own money and how much you're worth, your sense of self-worth. And the 2nd house is also a very deeply entrenched place, which means we all have a certain sense of self-esteem, self-worth, and value at any given time, and it's very solid. No matter who you are, you think you're worth this much right now. But yet, that's evolved over time. And what makes that evolve over time is our willingness to consider things and to rock the boat, you might say, and the willingness to embrace change and even chaos and even a deeper level of self that we have and value that we haven't considered yet. That's the 8th house contrast. So Libra, in order for you to go to the next level of self-worth, self-esteem, and how that translates into money and value, in order for you to go to that next level, you need to be willing to embrace the uncertainty, the change, the chaos that comes from the 8th house. So you're becoming aware emotionally of your need to be flexible and your need to embrace change as a creative force with this full moon in your 8th house. Only then, only this balance between Stability and instability can bring together growth along the value cycle. Or it's also your values and other people's values. But having balance there. Scorpio, this is of course a 1st and 7th house cycle, so you have the sun, and this whole cycle now is about your own personal identity. Of course, that's always measured against others, other romantic partners, or just people in general. So quite simply, yet quite profoundly, you're realizing that your own personal growth is a mirror reflection of what comes back to you from others. And how you treat others is directly commensurate to how you feel about yourself and your projections and your ideas about others and who they are and how they are and what they should do is directly correlated to what you think about yourself. And so this moon in the 7th house this full moon in the 7th house is to provide that contrast. And so this is a big lesson for you to also harmonize your constant need for personal dynamism and personal growth with something that's more settled. And especially allowing relationships with partners to be more settled, rather than feeling like, well, if we're not working through some intense dynamic, then it's just boring and we're not growing and all of this. This is a bigger Scorpio delusion, that unless everything is pushed to some emotional extreme, there's no growth happening. That's not the case. Growth doesn't happen until things settle down. That's the balancing point. Big stuff for you right now, Scorpio. And Sagittarius, this is a 6th and 12th house cycle. You're going through a 12th house cycle right now, which is about connecting to those things that you can't control, those things that you can't organize, and those that quality of life that's about surrender and allowing things to be the way they are, not driven by your effort or your ambition or your goals. That's the 12th house. So Sagittarius, you're really learning about surrender at this time with this powerful sun in Scorpio and this Scorpio lesson. So in contrast to that surrender, you're becoming aware that you can't just let it all hang out and everything take care of itself. It requires that we put forth some effort and that we create space for surrender to happen creatively rather than to just get knocked around by anything that comes our way. And that's the form of our sadhana and our service and our willingness to sacrifice and show up to do the difficult work as well. So there's a balance between surrender and effort. The 6th house is literally the house of effort, and this full moon is happening in your 6th house of effort. Putting forth effort to maintain space and a container for surrender. Relaxation, 12th house, effort, 6th house. There needs to be an effortless effort. This is a very Zen principle. Effortless effort requires a little bit of effort, but you put forth that effort in order to connect with that which is effortless. Big lesson for Sagittarius right now. Capricorn, this is a 11th and 5th house transit. So you're learning the lessons of the 11th house right now, Capricorn, which has to do with your own personal ambitions and your highest efforts, your highest desires, even to save the world or to be recognized and to make a big difference. This is the 11th house. In contrast to that, opposite that is the 5th house of your personal creativity and those things that give you personal joy, like for instance your children, and those things that you love so much, your heart's desire, your inner heart's desire, which is a personally creative and fulfilling, and the most personally creative and fulfilling things that we experience on a personal level. This is in contrast to the 11th house, which are things we do for the greater good. And these things need to be in harmony with each other. If you just try to show up and be a selfless servant, which is the highest quality of the 11th house, but your heart isn't connected to it, then it's going to be phony. It's not going to be genuine. Bringing together your personal, creative heart's desire and inspiration with the things that cause the highest good, the things that are the most beautiful to you in the highest sense, is the balancing point between the 5th and the 11th houses. And so the other thing, the 11th house, is just our ambitions. And if we're just blindly ambitious in order to manifest, but it's not connected to our heart's desire, the thing that we love, then it's just going to lead to disappointment. We'll just be disappointed. But we never are disappointed ultimately with the things we love the most. We keep showing up, we keep bringing our highest good and our highest ambition to the thing we love the most, because we want to share that beauty with as many people as possible. This is the 5th and 11th house axis for you, Capricorn, right now. Aquarius, this is a 4th and 10th house connection, and you're experiencing the 10th house power, which is the power of your actions to change the world, the impact of those responsibilities and the need to maintain them, and that external pressure measured against your internal desire to want to feel good beyond the pressure. So the 4th house is where we want to feel good, where we want to, it's our emotional state and wanting to feel connected to the heart. Many times people get disconnected from the heart, like in their career or in their in the impact that they want to make. But they have to be connected, otherwise at some point we'll abandon our duties because it doesn't feel good to us. Or we won't even take on any duties because it doesn't feel good to us. So balancing these things, and a lot of that has to do with even stepping up into a bigger role because you want to serve that vision, and not stopping because you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. Because when we step into a higher sense of purpose, we step out of our comfort zone. And the 4th house is our comfort zone. So Aquarius, this is your time to really encounter this and really harmonize your heart and the willingness to be anchored in the heart in order to accomplish all that you want to accomplish. The 4th house is the roots of the tree, which you're experiencing now, Aquarius, and the 10th house is how high that tree can grow. And Pisces, this is a 3rd and 9th house transit, so you're experiencing the beauty and power of the 9th house right now, Pisces, which is about your highest teachings, your highest philosophies, gurus and teachers that have taught you and that inspire you, and your deeper sense of meaning and purpose. This is also the place of religion, where we believe in those things and they bring us a great amount of solace because of our belief. But harmonized with that is the need to question and make sure that our philosophies make sense and that we can articulate them and that we have enough information about them so it's not just a blind belief system, blind faith. When someone just has blind faith and then you ask them pertinent questions about their religion or what they believe in and they have no answer, it's because they haven't developed the 3rd house in relationship to the 9th house. So this is big stuff for you right now, Pisces, is actually study, understanding, and growing in wisdom, and the willingness to even say, you know what, my philosophy is not really right because this information isn't congruent with what I believe. So the willingness and the courage to actually hone your belief systems and your philosophies and your sense of meaning and purpose into something that's authentic with your intellect. We have this intelligence for a reason. It's not bad. It's there to make sure that you're authentic. So these are the forecasts for the 12 signs in this full moon in Taurus, which is the midway point of the Scorpio cycle.